thank you all for coming after the rainstorm, moving lunch, no air. We're finally gonna start here. So I'm gonna let everyone here introduce themselves. We have Go Engineer, GSC, and Brad and Adam and Dan. So everybody's gonna take over and introduce themselves and we're gonna get started.
Thank you, Betty.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining us at the SolidWorks user group meeting. We're happy that you could come and be a part of this today. It's really important to us. So my name's Danielle Rex. I'm with Go Engineer. I'm the account rep for Wisconsin. And I also have Dean joining me as well, one of our amazing engineers. So thanks for joining.
Hi, everyone. I'm with GSC, your supporting reseller. Jordan, your account manager, wasn't here today, but I'm happy to be here and see all of you. And hopefully we'll have some upcoming events here in July as well to revisit you guys. So thanks for being here and nice to see you all.
By show of hands, who here has a SolidWorks certification? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, who here has the most amount of certifications? I'm curious. Who has more than one? So everyone has at least one? You have two? What do you have? Associate and professional. And surfacing, and what else? Oh, general solids. Does anyone have more than that? Resellers don't count. Sorry. Here you go. Very welcome. It pays to get certified.
Danny, may want to tell them where that gummy bear came from.
Oh yeah, so on our road trip, where were we? Indiana? Coming out of Indianapolis, we stopped at the Albanese gummy bear factory, and we had to make a stop and picked up those gummy bears, and I was like, oh, this will make a really good, giveaway item. So, yeah. So kickstands up for a SolidWorks certification. My name is Daniel. There we go. I'm pretty sure you can't read what's up there. I'm a SolidWorks expert. I work directly for SolidWorks on the certification team. I help develop a lot of our exams, update exams, create new exams. Some of the exams that I had a hand in was surfacing, mold making, the new draft site exam that just came out this year, a handful of our 3D experience certifications as well. I've been riding motorcycles for the past 10 years, and these guys are hard to keep up with. They like to cruise, at some top speeds, and sometimes we come across some bad weather, like today, and it could be very similar to your SolidWorks certification journey. For those of you who are not certified and want to know, where to get started, how you can get started. It's could be, with all these certifications abroad, really don't know exactly where to start. So I'm here to help guide you in the right direction and show you the path, and as well as inform you about some updates. So I'm just going to spend about 10 minutes with you all today. On this slide here, we have all these industries. What do you think they have in common? There's the furniture industry, there's trucks with cranes and trucks with vacuums, and the energy sector. Anyone take a guess what all these industries have in common? I heard SolidWorks. Who said SolidWorks? You? Raise your hand. Can you listen to Kale? Thank you. Yes, SolidWorks is the most common factor between all these industries. And, the best thing about, SolidWorks is, you can master or share your mastery of SolidWorks with a certification. So how does that look like? Now, just sharing some of our journey on our motorcycle, we can see some rain curtains up there, up ahead. For some of you, it may look like driving through a small town where you got, roadblocks up ahead, or, your boss coming down on you, hey, we really need this project done. And you kind of have to pump the brakes on your certification journey. And so where do you start? Can anyone tell me what's the first level of certification that we offer for our SOLIDWORKS certification? I heard associate who said that. You did? Kale? Yes, the associate. So our associate level exam is pretty much the start of your certification journey. It says that I know the basic fundamentals of SOLIDWORKS, and it's going to test you on, part design, drawings, assembly, and it's pretty much a benchmark to share with industry that you know how to use it at the bare minimum. And I highly recommend utilizing your resellers for training. They have some really great self-paced training as well as in-person that you can take advantage of. And so any of our essentials training course coming out of that, this is what you should be able to achieve after going through a training of that type. What about the second level? Second level certification. Professional. Yes, our professional level exam. So this is what we call our CSWP, Certified SOLIDWORKS Professional. You're going to want to be very efficient with SOLIDWORKS when taking this exam. It's going to test you on, how well you can update your design for change, how well you can utilize configurations, building assemblies top down as well as bottom up, and utilizing things like global variables to help drive your design and actually designing with intent. These guys, I know Brad and Adam, they do a really good job in their presentations, and they really strain on designing with intent and fully defining all your sketches, which our friend Toby has a song on that, and it's been stuck in my mind like all week since you guys have played it or brought it up. And then our next level of certification, what do you think that is? Expert, yes. So this is something that everyone strives to achieve in their SOLIDWORKS career, is a expert level certification. We have a couple that you can take now, and this is for your, all of our seasoned professionals that have used SOLIDWORKS for at least a year or so. We now have high school students achieving this level of certification. So if you got the time and the know-how, or to be able to put in, this is where everyone strives to achieve. And so for the first path, we have for our CAD design, you start out with the CSWA, but the CSWP Professional is the prerequisite for the expert level certification. And then there's 4 of 5 other certifications you need to qualify for the expert level exam. And what's great today is that y'all are going to get a free voucher to take the associate and to also take the professional and one of these other exams of your choosing. So depending where you're at, if you already have the associate, you can use this free voucher to take the professional as well, and one of these other exams that would qualify you for the expert. Now, we don't give out these expert exams for free or discount them, but we do offer a free retake. When you get to that step, you can contact me at the end of the presentation. My contact email will be there, and we'd be happy to give you a free retake at that exam. I mentioned that there was another expert course or expert track that you can take, and that's in simulation. This is something new within the last 2 years. We now offer a simulation expert exam, and the qualifications for that is the professional, the CSWP, as well as the simulation associate and simulation professional to achieve expert. And what's nice is, once you achieve that expert level certification, you can come join us at 3D Experience World next year and every year after. And we recognize all of our CSWEs around the world with a huge party, and just for y'all. And we get to get all the CSWEs together. You get some really cool swag while you're there too as well. And we have a good time. Some updates that we've done this year with our certification program that I would like to share with y'all is we did consolidate some of our exams, with our 3D Experience platform that we have. SolidWorks now comes with 2 flavors. You can have it with the platform or on the platform. What's the difference? When it's on the platform, you're using SolidWorks Connected. With the platform, it's regular SolidWorks desktop, but you have access to the platform with it. And so the exams that we had for both of those at the associate and professional level, we have now consolidated. So for the CSWA, these 2 exams are now just 1 exam, 1 certification for the CSWA. And so you can take it with either platform, either flavor of SolidWorks to achieve this certification. This is your first level certification that I talked about earlier. The next level, the professional, the CSWP, we've also consolidated that as well, where you can utilize both flavors of SolidWorks. And the same thing goes for the expert level exam. We had people that come to SolidWorks World primarily because I think that's the only event where we actually give the expert exam for free to take at that venue at 3D Experience World. And you can take it with either SolidWorks on the platform or on desktop. Other updates we made is the rebranding of some of our exams, mostly our certifications on the platform. So I know you cannot read this behind me, but we have exams on the platform that such as 3D Creator, 3D Sculptor. These are your X apps on the platform. They used to be called 3D Experience, and we've rebranded them. So now you got SolidWorks 3D Creator, you have SolidWorks 3D Sculptor. And so we have the brand at the forefront of the certification name for our platform certifications, just to bring to your attention. And for our desktop, for the SolidWorks certifications, we have just about, I think, 17 or 18 different SolidWorks exams available to you. If you're a customer, you actually get these exams. You get access to these exams for free twice a year that you can take advantage of. But for everyone online today and here at this meeting, we're going to give you all some free vouchers to take our certifications. The only name change here really was for the CSWA, CSWP, and CSWE, we changed the name from Mechanical Design to CAD Design. So it's SolidWorks CAD Design Associate, SolidWorks CAD Design Professional, SolidWorks CAD Design Expert. Now, just a fun little quiz for y'all. We have well over 800,000 certified users around the world. I'd like to know is, what do you think is the #1 most popular certification that we have currently around the world? Any guesses? Raise your hand, please. Who said that? Associate? Yes, the CSWA. We have 500,000 certified users around the world. Thank you. What do you think the #2 most popular certification is? I need to see a hand. Professional. Yes, the CSWP Professional. We have 120,000 certified SolidWorks professionals around the world. What about number 3? No, it's not expert. That's an elite amount of, very elite few number of people around the world. We actually, I think it's about 7,000 people around the world that are experts. Online, what do we have? Sheet metal, yes. The guys online beat y'all. Sheet metal, we have 27,000 certified sheet metal users around the world. What about number 4? We're just going to do top 5. Number 4? I need to see a hand before the online people. Surfacing, no. Drawings, yes. The drawing tools professional exam, which is also one that qualifies you, in addition to sheet metal, towards your expert level exam. And number 5, the number 5 most popular certification. Any guesses? I heard weldments. No, that's not it. Online? No answers? Okay, I'm going to give you a guess. It's an associate level certification. Sustainability? No, it's not sustainability. Simulation? No, it's not simulation. Electrical? No. We have a correct answer online. Additive manufacturing. The associate additive manufacturing certification is the top number 5 most popular around the world. And with that, I just want to encourage y'all to take a certification, prove, to your, our certifications follows you throughout your whole career. You can update your email at any time. They do not expire. And if you've never taken a certification, we have sample exams that you can take just to help get you familiar with the interface, and utilize these free vouchers to give you a leg up by, getting you, acclimated to what's going to be on it. There is I believe a 14-day waiting period between retakes, and a 60 or 90 day for the expert. But I'm sure everyone will pass their first time. And before I hand it on over to Brad, who's going to speak to y'all on Visualize and give you some really great, presentation on that, does anyone have any questions regarding certification that I can help answer? Can you bring up the 3D Experience, the Certification Center website? Brad's going to bring up the Certification Center website. It's 3dexperience.virtualtester.com. If you gave me your email, I'll have specific instructions I'll be sending everybody here, as well as online, where you can create a new login if you don't already have one. And this is also where you're going to go to download our Tester Pro client. It's a third-party application that you can do online. As long as you have SolidWorks on your machine, you can take it anywhere, from home or at work.
Certified professional. Okay.
Oh, if you just go to the home?
We'll see who all is certified expert.
Oh.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
Hello. Oh, so Brad's just looking up you can see who's certified in your area, but how many CSWPs do we have? We have 561 users in Wisconsin with a professional level exam. If you navigate to the home page, please. So on the home page, the top right corner, is where you can download the Tester Pro clients for your exam. And with the email I'm going to send you, you don't even need a voucher code. It's going to recognize the email you provide me and give you all the exams available to you. Now, I will say these exams, this offer is only good until the end of July. So you have till the end of the July next month to take advantage of these free exams. Any other questions? Yes. No? Well, for those of you online, stick around. There's going to be a QR code, and we'll be giving out or raffling off a free gift card sponsored by, donated by HP. And this QR code is going to collect your email that we're going to use for our free vouchers that you'll receive next week. There'll be an email sent to you. With that, thank you very much. And I'm going to pass it on over to Brad, and he's going to talk to you about Visualize and the great things you can do with that. Thank you.
You good? Thank you, sir. Good job. Okay. He's got it. All right. So we're going to do some roundabout CAD today using Visualize. Now, do we have Visualize users in the room already? Somebody that actually uses them? Got a couple. Okay. This is one I would love to see an exam for. Have a certified Visualize associate. It'd be fun to try to push myself to try to learn it. So this would be a new one we can try. All right, come on now. No, it's just there it goes. All right. All right, so we're gonna go and we're gonna unlock our Visualize skills. Keep in mind, I'm a primary CAD user. Visualize is just a fun hobby I get to do sometimes to show off our customers' products to them. Or if you have 2023 SolidWorks, you will see one of our renderings on the splash screen that opens up. I have a photo of it in here as well. Through Altec, they allowed us to put one of the products on the splash screen so you can see it. And that was my first time actually attempting anything with rendering. So it was a fun thing to learn. So introductions first. Let me hide this. Hide panel. I am a husband and a dad, first and foremost, a project designer at Altec Industries. We build bucket trucks, digger derricks, cranes, chippers, things like that for the electric utility market. So if you have, obviously you guys have power and internet here today. Your suppliers of those buy trucks from us. We help keep the power running, and it's always a fun job. I'm also the SolidWorks user group leader for Roanoke, Virginia, also known as the Star City SWUG. With that, I'm the Mid-Atlantic Region Committee Rep for the SolidWorks User Group Network. I'm a SolidWorks champion, a member of that program, and a CSWE as well. And a little sneak peek of the bike that I didn't get to ride this time because it broke 2 weeks before the trip. I was doing my due diligence, changing the oil, being a good motorcycle owner, found metal anyway. So now I have to completely tear down the thing and rebuild it. It's okay. It will be back better than ever. So, some key takeaways today. Why do you need to use Visualize? How to get started. So we'll do some options for better images, and then we'll kind of go into output and whatnot. So, why do you, as a CAD designer or an engineer, need to use Visualize? Well, we're kind of show some comparisons here. We at Altec have a lot of testing equipment that we build, and we get them sent to the plant. It gets made. A lot of the times, the guys on the floor putting it together don't even know what it is. So we get to use our 3D CAD software, create them, and then we want to show it off to them so they can see, okay, this is what I'm going to be working on when it comes to me. And this looks okay, right? It's got the hard edges cut on, the tangent edges cut on. It kind of makes sense. It's a white box with a placard on it with some buttons or some lights. Looks good, but it can always look better. With Visualize, I was able to add materials, add textures of the materials, even add in lighting and shadows and everything I would like to showcase this, and was able to render this out to showcase, what our product is going to look like to our assemblers on the floor, so they know, hey, this is what I need to use. This photo goes along with their work instructions. They can see how everything looks exactly as it sits on the floor, rather than just a, I wouldn't say rudimentary SolidWorks image. It's just this one's more defined to meet real life. Same thing with our digger derricks, our customer trucks. This one's our small backyard derrick that goes between gates and does all this fun stuff. Kind of looks good, right? We want to show our customer this is what it's going to look like when it's done. We at Altec use different material colors to denote what's going to be made out of what. We've got all those materials sitting there, all the different colors, and it's like, nah, it kind of looks okay. Well, at the request of SolidWorks, I was able to create a 3D render of this thing and be able to show it off to our customer, as well as put it on the splash screen. So if you have 2023, you will see this image come up as one of those random rotations up through there. First time I ever used a rendering software since I was converted from that software that starts with an A to SolidWorks. So it was a good learning experience. So we're going to kind of dive into why we wanted to do it. So where do you start? Well, first, you got to have your model. So fully defined model, got to be right. And then we got to import it. This thing stopped showing up. All right. This is our basic layout for Visualize. You can customize it a little bit, just like SolidWorks. You can move things around. On the left side of the screen is going to be your viewport or your camera view that you can manipulate and show. On the right-hand side, you've got your icons that will denote, circle these, denote things. You got an object, you've got your paint colors and textures, you've got your background, and then the camera angles up there. Those are the selections that you can go through. This allows you to do things. And with Visualize, especially on this Visualize Connected here, you've got local and you've got cloud resources. You can actually download direct from some supplier, from 3D Experience, and have multiple appearances, multiple materials. You can find a specific glass that you're working with. You can find specific plastics, paint colors, paint codes that way. And we can dig into that as well. All of those options with paint color, with background photos and cameras allow you to do the cloud and the local machines. So you can find them and download them as you go. So there are two methods to start with to get a part into Visualize. The first one is you got a Visualize add-in you can use. And then the second one is import into a new project. And that's what we're going to do. I don't have the Visualize add-in turned on this machine right now. I have SolidWorks Connected 2024, so I'm not going to worry about it. But we're going to do an import in, and we can do upwards to 20 different CAD files, even your STLs for your 3D printers, step files. You could even do things for, you might even see things like Parasolid, we got PTC Creo, got Rhino, if you're familiar with Rhino, which is a kind of a sub-D modeler. You also have those here. We're just going to mark these out. We don't need to see those anymore because that's from the software that shall not be named. But what are the benefits, or how would you do it? There's multiple ways to import the part when you start working with Visualize. And we're going to go through some of these options and why you would want to select them and why you wouldn't. You got the automatic option, which follows your assembly structure and your appearance, and it mimics what you have inside of SolidWorks. You can flatten your parts into just a single entity, so every screw, every nut, bolt, washer, piece of steel will have to be assigned individually appearances from your imports. The automatic one actually groups the appearances by how they're shown inside of SolidWorks. The group/appearance, it is an alias for a file extension. I've never actually messed with that one, so I don't try to dig with that one. Layer just pulls it in and with the assembly structure only. You can do two different ways up here that kind of get confusing: layer over appearance or appearance over layer, and it goes by order. It goes with your order of importance. It favors the assembly structure first and then your appearances. So it'll try to build your tree and then keep the appearances together. If you have your stuff already preset in SolidWorks, it'll pull, say if you have 50 bolts and they all have one appearance, they're all one color. When you import it inside of Visualize, the software says, okay, I don't have to consider these individual parts. This is one whole big grouped mass of parts that are going to be this color, so that I can assign different materials later in mass. It's a little bit easier to use. Yes. Yep. You would have to do flatten, but if you would do it inside of Visualize, and I'll show you here in a second. When you go to import, it'll let you tell you which one you want to do it. And then you could do appearance over layer, same thing. It'll favor the appearances first and then the assembly structure second. And then you can also just retain the structure, which is only assembly parts, or your assembly structure, and not the appearances at all. So here we have a pretty simple CAD model. It's got 9 parts in it. Three cylinders, 3 squares, and 3 pyramid triangle shapes, right? So we've got 3 sub-assemblies of 3 parts. We got a total of 9 parts. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the layer option in this instance to import, and it's going to pick everything individually, and you can select every part and import the layers one at a time. It gives you a little bit of flexibility. So if, like what you said, you wanted to do, you have multiples of the same part, you want to be different colors, you have different paint, different post-processing, this would be where you would, one of the options you would have. So if you are going to be using the layer over appearance, kind of creates a mess. It just throws everything together So I try not to use that one. It just throws everything together. It doesn't even keep the model structure. It just big blob. Oops, I made a mistake. So use that one pretty carefully. Kind of gives you that face. Hey, Adam, that kind of looks like you. Now,
No, I don't have it. Sure.
yeah, that's true. All right. Now, if you're doing, you already have your appearances set inside of SolidWorks, then this, the appearance option would be the one that you would select. And it just groups them in appearance only, so that if I change those three colors, well, those three options, it'll change all of them equivalently. So if everything's organized and set in SolidWorks, it's great. Now, if you're doing animations, which I don't get a chance to do any, yeah, it's not recommended to do the appearance one because it will not work appropriately. I've never tried it because I don't have the pro version of this or the premium version to do the animation to try, but I've heard it's pretty bad. So thumbs up. Now, appearance over layer favors appearances first, then assembly structure second. So it actually builds your part correctly, but it gives you the same option as before. You can pick every color individually. So now you're allowed to build your part inside of Visualize and change the colors and images as you want. So this is the part, this is where you would be if you're doing premium animations and whatnot. And it will allow you to override appearances for individual items. So Keenan gives it a thumbs up. And then just the assembly structure, it's going to import it in, and then it's going to give you every, let's bring that up so you can see it again. Every face can be selected. And we don't want to have to select each face, each fillet. You don't want to do that. So we try to stay away from that one. Now, if you have a simple part, a multi-body part that's really simple, that's a great option to use. So a little tip for imports. If your appearances are accurate in SolidWorks and you're going for an animation, do appearance over layer. If it's a static image, just do appearance. If you don't care about how your appearances are set up inside of SolidWorks and you've gotten it from another user, you don't know how they've set it up and you're just putting it in there, just do your layers and it'll allow you to assign them as needed. But what are the options? So we're going to dig in some options here and we'll get rolling. How are we on time? All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to go into camera settings. We're going to do some effects, depths of field, doing multiple cameras, some post-processing, your rule of thirds. Does anybody actually have to do photography in here? I got a couple head shakes. So the rule of thirds, you might be able to help me out because some of this stuff I'm not really good at. So I'm having to learn as I go. My wife does the photography stuff. I don't. Adam does the photography stuff as well. I don't. I just know how to point and shoot. And we're going to go over some lights and scenes and stuff. It's illegal? That's true. Yeah, it's a bad joke. All right. First thing we're going to go over, once we get our part imported, is we're going to start setting up our camera. And then we're going to go into how to customize that. So inside your camera setting, you've got basically named viewports like you have inside of SolidWorks. So your first step, your camera is going to be a lower front shot or a duplicate of another one. Name your cameras. It always helps for clarity. It's very good for your design or your rendering intent if you name your cameras. Visualize allows you to do that, and it will. When you import your model, it'll auto default to whatever viewport you had last saved. So you can name it and then start changing everything around. Secondly, you want to pick your camera aspect ratio. Now, I don't know about you all, but I'm stuck on the 16:9. My youngest child loves old TVs. He actually has a bunch of CRTs, so he likes the 4:3, playing Mario and all that stuff. I've never once seen anybody render a 4:3 high quality rendering, but it's an option available. Then you got your 1:1 VR. And then if you want to do 360 video, if you've got something like a Insta360 or anything like that, you can kind of mimic the view around. And then you can actually use or customize it and find something specific. You know, you're going to render this photo that's going to be on a sheet of paper a certain size. You can set it that way so that you know your render will fit appropriately. Perspective. Warning, I'm not an expert. I'm just a casual abuser of CAD software. So perspective and focal length, they're proportional. So when you change one, the other one is inverse. And to change that, hold the Alt key and use the middle mouse wheel inside the viewport, and it'll auto adjust that. Or you can come in here and drag the sliders around to set your focal length and your perspective if you choose to do so. I tend to do default camera views and stuff because I'm still learning on how to make it look the best. Depth of field. This is a key. I always enable depth of field. This will make your pictures look more realistic and lifelike. Enable depth of field. You can pick the distance, how far the lens is from your object, or the actual focal point is from the object, and the aperture size. But Visualize allows you to actually just manually pick it. So if you know you're going to focus on a specific point of a vehicle, if I go to pull up a vehicle render and I want to focus on a headlight, I just pick it in there and it'll auto adjust and set everything to fit. So I'm not having to manually mess with it. Again, not a proficient camera operator. It'd be fun to learn, just don't have the time. So we'll actually let's pull it up there. Oh, come on. I broke it. Where did it go? There it goes. So go ahead and uh-oh. I don't know why I decided to do that. Let's open from this PC here. And let's go to game controller. So we're going to dive into the software here and kind of look at some of those options for camera placement and kind of give you a live look at how everything's going. If it will open. There we go. All right, here we have our viewport. We're going to come over here and select our camera option. I'm on Visualize Connected, by the way, just so that everybody knows it might look a little bit different than your desktop version if you have some options. Currently in this viewport, I can do much like SolidWorks. I can grab and drag using the middle mouse wheel and kind of set the way I want this item to look. I could even come in here and pick items that I want to mess with. But currently we're going to come in, we're going to focus on cameras. So I want to create a new one. And to create a new camera, it's simple. Click the plus sign, add a new camera. We can come in here and zoom, and we could see, here's where your camera is located. If I can change this for your viewpoint here. My apologies, my settings aren't up to date here. It's okay. We'll work on it. So we go. You can see where your camera is positioned inside of the software and what it's kind of aimed at. There's a faint blue line inside the viewport itself. Now, I can come in and transform this camera by moving it, bringing the distance and things back. Like a dolly. So if I've ever worked on any production sets, their cameras are usually on a dolly that moves back and forth or left to right. They do latitude, longitude adjustments. So if you want to move your camera up and down, latitude, longitude to get the exact angle you want. And then, if your model comes in crooked, set your twist to set the camera up the way you would want to change it. Am I still live on Zoom? Okay, good. So I know I want to make this camera fit this picture for a specific way here. And we're going to come in, we're going to pick my aspect ratio. We're going to set it as perspective. We're going to set a perspective in here, kind of make it look realistic, and set our focal length. And then I'm going to enable my depth of field. Depth of field, I can change my focal distance back and forth, but instead I'm going to pick, because I know I want it to focus on one thing, and it'll auto set everything for me. It sets all the aperture size, f-stop, and everything for your camera, just like you would if you were actually manually operating one. So I tend to just leave it alone. Now that I've got it named, now that I've got it created, I'm gonna name it. So, and then once I get done, I'm going to lock this down. Key tip. Once you create the camera, you know you have it exactly right, lock it so that you don't accidentally come in here and fudge a button somewhere and you ruin all the work you just did. Lock it, and then if you need to create another one, do so. But with that, you'll see it's locked up in the right corner. It's named, it's ready to go. Let's see. I believe you can. Yeah, save to file. Right click on it, and then there's your camera file settings, and you can pick all the settings you would like that way. So if you know all your colleagues want to use the same format, they can do that as well. Because you said you were familiar with camera stuff, you might be able to tweak it and make it look as realistic as possible, and then like, hey, here you go.
Of course, that f-stop, if you're using some kind of background or something, that would help give you a nice bouquet or something like that. Make sure it doesn't mess with your lighting.
Did you use the word bouquet?
That's the terminology of making it
Okay.
blurry in the background.
Oh, blurry.
Is it blurry in the background?
Sorry. All right. So aperture size is the amount of light that's measured into the lens. It's measured in f-stop distance, or f-stop, and then focal distance is the distance from the lens to the point of focus, and use the pick. So here's an example. I actually pulled this off of one of Mike Sandy's presentations because it's a great example of how f-stop changes the way your renders look. So here we have, yes. So I'm just going to click through these and you'll be able to see them as they go. But a 1.2 to a 2.0, 2.8 to a 4 to a 9. And you can see as I go backwards and forwards, you get more of the item in focus. So this is where you're gonna want to mess around and kind of set things. Did you raise your hand? Oh, okay. Sorry. I caught it out of the corner of my eye here. So now that we've got it kind of set up, we're going to move it, kind of set the image, capture it, and then we lock it, because that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we have this thing locked in place and we can save it, export it out for my other users. Next, we're going to set up our lights and the scene. So an environment is a file that is a 3D view with lights that move with the camera. This is what SolidWorks or Visualize calls them. It's a full picture in like a sphere, and you can move it and position your part inside of there and get what you will like. With that, you can save some local to your machine when you install the software, but you can also go to the cloud that's installed with it and pull some direct from 3ds. And you can do it under the user libraries.
If you
Or-
have an Insta360, you
Yeah.
can create your own.
Yes, if you have an Insta360, you can create your own.
Or
or-
something
Yeah, something similar. Or you can go to websites like Polygon, Polyhaven, and download these things. They're called HDRS files. And these are native for things like 3D gaming and whatnot. You can use them for Photoshop and whatnot. So you can download these and import them on your machine. And apparently I just lost Zoom. Our apologies.
Yeah, we keep getting disconnected from the internet, so bear with us. as we
It's
reconnect.
okay. We'll be good. I'm not worried about it. 30
I'll
seconds.
be going out next here in a minute. Mine cuts out right after his though.
It'll be all right. You know what?
For those on Zoom, if mine cuts out, you'll know because you'll lose video and audio feed for a minute.
All right, let's go back here.
So
Yep. My apologies. Yep. I am now back on.
Good.
All right. All right. All right. Where were we? Fixing my display settings is what I'm doing.
I'm seeing.
There we go. All right. So now that we've got our scene set, we can set the lights that come in the scene. With that, we've got multiple backplates. Backplates are your static backgrounds that you can use to get the most realistic rendering you can. The scene sets the lights, the lighting and everything. If you have the premium version, it allows you to place lights around and change all the lighting options. I don't have that option, so I didn't get a chance to actually dig around and mess with lights. But you can set your static backplates very similarly with the other environment. And these are just static backgrounds. So you can do the same thing before. You can take a photo of your driveway and render a car in it if you want, as long as you have a high def enough camera. You know, the iPhone's pretty good now. You can download them locally to your machine. You can download something. So if you want to render a piece of furniture in this room, you could take a photo of the room, render the item inside of it using this as a static backplate.
Curious, anybody at Ashley, do you guys do a lot of that stuff like showing room and?
NVIDIA now has some materials created as well. You can download an entire material library direct from NVIDIA, so you don't have to create your own. Everything from glass to water to any material you can think of. They have it's a massive file. I think it's a gig or two when you download it from their website. So use this as an option if you're interested in playing around with materials. So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna pull up our demo. We're going to pick an item here. Go to our appearances tab and we'll drag this down so you can see all the stuff in here. And these are all the colors that are currently assigned inside the photo or inside the file itself. So I know that my main housing here is going to be like a black color, but I can drag it up here and edit it, find a different color I want by any of the colors. I can do RGB, I can do HSV. I wish they did Pantone, but I do not think they allow Pantone numbers, but you can convert Pantone numbers to RGB to get the one you want. This would be where I think it'd be a good enhancement if they would allow the Pantone palettes. Although I do know Adobe just recently went to, if you do Photoshop and things like that, Adobe actually just went recently, or maybe the last year, paying extra for the Pantone palette. So maybe that's why it's not in here. But we can come in and pick any color we want, or I can come in and pick a color, anything on the screen, using the little picker. So if I know something on a website is a specific color, even I want to make it match the PowerPoint color, it'll allow me to pick the color directly on this on the screen, and I don't have to actually go through and find out what the Pantone color is or what the RGB color code is. After I get it set, we can pick our material, and I love car paint, so we're gonna put it in as car paint. We could set roughness and everything and kind of get what we want. As we can see, we got some plastic and stuff in here as well. So it's got a little bit of roughness to it with a little bit of reflectivity, or was it emissive? I don't know. I can't pronounce it.
About orange peel.
Orange peel, that's it. Orange peel in the paint. You got the rough. We've got even some cutouts if we want to make them transparent or not. And then if you wanted to do some like metal flake and stuff, you can change your metal flake colors. And so if I know it's going to be a metal flake, I can change it to a specific color. We're going to make it look like a bass boat. So now we've got a red metal flake controller, and we can show it off to our customer as close as we can to get to their paint color. I like messing around with the appearances, but I think I like using the NVIDIA created ones the most currently, because they are as accurate as I can find for somebody who's actually colorblind. So I don't even attempt to match colors. I just put the codes in. After you get your picture ready to go, you've got it all set up. You've got your environment, your backplate, and your materials created. Now you got to configure your output. You got to render your file. So you got a variety of tools to customize it. More passes equal more accuracy for render passes, but more passes is more time. And then you can set the size and the file type. So here's our options. Close this out of the way. So it allows you to pick the location where you want to go, just like any other file type, file. You can pick the actual kind of image format. So if you know you're going to do a PNG with a clear background or a transparent background, just go ahead and set that. You want it to render, and then you can set the size of the render. So if you know it's going to go on a document that's a certain size, you can set the resolution you like, and then we can go down and say, okay, how many render passes we want. I've only seen any benefit going up to about 500 to 1,000, between 500 and 1,000 render passes. Anything after that just is more time that doesn't do any actual rendering, at least not that I can see and not on the screen. So you can do as many render passes as you want. I don't even know if there's a limit on how many you can take, but 250 to 500 seems to be pretty accurate on render passes. So always enable the denoiser. Always keep that on. It seems to help with a more lifelike photo. And we always want it to go render mode for quality, because that's what we pay to use the software for. We want a quality output of our product. So here's our idea of 50 passes, 100 passes, 200 passes, 400 passes. And it goes back down to 50 just to show the differences. It really, after about 200 passes, it really doesn't make a difference. I don't know if you can really see it up on the screen. Well, maybe you can. Here we go. Let's see if it does it here. Is the animation not playing? Back it up. See if it does it here. It should jump to 100. There, 1,000. So it does make a difference between like 100 to 1,000, but anywhere between 300 and 500, it seems to be optimal to get a decent photo. For the ones who do use Visualize, I'm curious, how many passes do y'all typically run? Okay.
The amount of passes also is based on, are you doing activity, all of that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that- passing.
Yep.
Usually I stick 250 to 300.
Yeah.
Unless I have.
Yeah. And I've never been able to see like a benefit between 5 and 1,000. If you between that 5 and 1,000 mark, even with glass and stuff, at least not to my eyes, it's not a big enough deal to add to double the amount of passes in there. So
It's the game like anything else.
yeah,
Quality versus getting it done and rendered.
exactly. So now we've got everything. So at the end of both of our presentations, we typically like to do a call to action. So practice what you have, show it off to your coworkers. Maybe they'll be able to critique it a little bit. Ask for advice on how I could make this better. Maybe even have them come sit with you as you're doing a rendering, or as you're setting up an image and say, what works best? Does this look good to your eye? Because rendering is all about it's subjective to the person, I guess.
Peacock says he uses 200 to 250.
Okay,
Will
on the
Rogers
chat.
says 200.
Okay, on the chat, 200 to 250. Will Rogers is at 200. Okay. And then ask questions. Feel free to send me questions. I'm exploring Visualize more and more as I continue doing my job, but I always like helping people. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to put my contact information up there, but if you have any questions, feel free, shout them out. If not, put them in the chat too. No? Okay. 200, another 200 on there on the passes. Mm-hmm. If it's in a file location, you can just drop that file location inside. Yeah. So yeah. So you've got an actual library path you can set. So if you know where your projects are going to be, you know where your material's at, you can just have it linked in your software so that if somebody adds a new one, it's auto updated into the software. Say that again. It is tools options. And it's right here, library paths. And it allows you to pick everything that you want, lights, camera, projects, anything like that. We'll throw this mouse at you. Any more questions? Have you set your GPU priority to tell it to only use the aftermarket GPU instead of letting the computer pick on the computer? So under graphic settings, let's see. There's I don't know. What's your IT policy before I tell you something that you mess with? I don't want to get in trouble with your IT people. Okay. You have to tell it to set the GPU under the system options. He's looks like he's got help over there.
Okay, I think we got people trickling back in. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to start with our web browser. So when we start into the second part of the presentation, we usually like to take just a minute and a pause and kind of thank our sponsors out there, the people who made this possible for us to come around and do what we're doing this week and give all these presentations. When we do these presentations, each time we get up, and Brad and myself both, it's a brand new presentation. We're not regurgitating anything. We've done this for a few years now, and every time it's brand new content, brand new material. So we're always trying to figure out what to present for everybody, right? And in doing that, Altec is the company we work for, right? That's our day gig. That's the company that we really enjoy working for. They stand behind their employees, probably very similar to what Ashley does here. And they are really good at motivating and seeing people, encouraging people to learn more, do more, and be part of more. And so they allow Brad and I to travel around and do these presentations and be a part of this. So without them and their backing, we wouldn't be here at all. Also with SolidWorks User Group. With the SolidWorks User Group, if it wasn't here, we wouldn't be doing it either, right? Because that's kind of what this is all around. IronSWUG is, basically motorcycles going to SolidWorks User Groups. Z or HP, that's another big sponsor we've had this year. They've helped out in financing some of the stuff we've done, like the Harley Davidson Museum we was at yesterday, as well as gift cards and some other stuff like that. The laptops, right? I'm getting ready to have a presentation kind of about computers, PC hardware type stuff. And these laptops, they hooked us up with these laptops for the week. And there's some great machines, right? I mean, portable enough to take on our motorcycles, right? And they're doing just fine. I think they got A5000s in them. So they're chunking up some memory and spitting it back out, right? So yeah, kudos to them. 3D Connection doing a great job as well. They have sponsored us this year and giving a Space Mouse Pro at every stop, except for last night was a Space Mouse Enterprise. And so we will have a drawing for that Space Mouse Pro at the end. So if anybody likes or wants to try one of those out, you may be a lucky winner for that. So thank you, 3D Connection, for that. And then Go Engineer, GSC, Hawk Ridge, Converge, and Swift. Those are the VARs that are local in this area, and they've been huge in supporting us, right? Whether it been monetary values for different things like the meeting last night, or Go Engineers got some gift cards over here for you guys to get raffled off, and GSC's got some binoculars over here for you guys to go take a peek at some birds or whatever you might want to do. Just don't use it for your neighbor's windows, right? Keep out of the windows. So yeah, these guys are great, and they're not only here supporting us, but they're here to support you, right? And that's what we want to emphasize, is that if you have issues, yeah, we're here. We're going to give presentations. You can reach out to us. You can reach out to your neighbor next to you when you have an issue, but know that your VARs are there, and they're one-stop shop to help you with all your needs. And then of course, Ashley Furniture for giving us this location today and come in and talk to you guys and just rub shoulders with you and have a great experience. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. I've got a couple other things I'll show here in a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump into my presentation. If try that one more time. There we go. I know, right? I'm a data hog. That A5000 is coming in handy with that RAM. So my presentation is peak system performance. Performance is not just for hot rods or Harleys, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about computer specs and stuff. I will go ahead and admit, kind of like what Brad did with the camera stuff, I am not the one-stop shop IT guy, right? This is just some hardware specs as I know them. I'll start off by just saying what SolidWorks is the base recommendations are, and then I'll go into saying what I feel like they should be and maybe some tips and tricks on how to work with that. And I'll go ahead and kind of hit those highlights when I come to them. But for myself, my name's Adam Ebernickel. I am a project designer in the product engineering department of Altec Industries. Very similar to Brad. He kind of does some product stuff too, or project stuff as well. But what we do is bucket trucks, digger derricks, stuff for tree care, dump bodies, different things like that. Pretty much if the utility company uses it to keep your power on, we're probably there to support them in doing that. So if you see that stuff around, look for the Altec logo and know that's us. Also, and all this stuff I'm telling you has kind of come to fruition about the same amount of time. So I've been at Altech for a little over 10 years, and everything else kind of falls right in line with that. But I also teach as an adjunct professor in the applied engineering department of Mayland Community College. Just really love giving back and talking to people, teaching people, and mentoring. I think it's just a lot of fun, right? Also leader of the Western North Carolina Asheville SolidWorks user group. So if anybody knows where Asheville, North Carolina is, that's kind of about where my region, where my area is. It's just been an awesome experience going through that. And then right before COVID, I was asked to become a committee member for all of the SWUGing groups, kind of what Betty does up here in this area. I do the same for basically Mississippi, Tennessee, down through the Caribbean. As well as we brought SolidWorks user groups in-house inside of Altech itself. We had some guys going out to different user groups saying, you know, it's great and all, but not all of it applies to what we do here. And so we decided to bring it in-house. We've got 10 groups currently within Altech, and then we're looking on bringing maybe the 11th this year, and maybe another one. We'll look and see if the other one's ready or not. So I manage those user groups as well. I'm a SolidWorks champion. That's a cool program to be part of. It's kind of like SWUG groups without the SWUG, I guess. It's just kind of more individual based stuff where you can reach out and do some different things on your own or with other people to make a difference in your community with SolidWorks and stuff. There are some prerequisites to that, like certification levels and stuff. So if you want to learn about that, go to Google and just type in SolidWorks champion, and it'll come up, give you some applications and stuff. Matt Clegg does a great job running that program. So if you're a good fit, then you'll be asked to join based off your application. And I am a certified SolidWorks expert, just like Brad over here. Kind of went through that process, and something I felt not only to prove to myself I knew what I knew, but
And we're back. You're good.
don't worry about that. Okay. All right. Probably threw that over there, didn't I?
It's fine.
Did I have people's faces over here?
Yep. Okay,
Oh,
don't
it's
worry
all
about
good. I'm not worried about it. So yeah, so I was trying to flatten a piece of sheet metal, that I couldn't get to flatten within SolidWorks. So I said, hey, I've got a surfacing, a little bit of surfacing knowledge for my exam. And so I went in and decided to take it and make it a surface, flatten the surface, and then thicken the surface. And there I got my flattened sheet metal piece. So it gives you a lot of different tools outside of what your normal work scope might be. All right, some key takeaways from this is what should you have based off of your hardware, based off your computer and stuff and what you're doing. Things to consider. And of course, like I said, tips and tricks for kind of running things a little more smooth towards the end of it. The first thing I'm gonna look at is just minimum requirements. Now keep in mind when I go through these, are like minimum requirements, right? And I've even seen things run on less than this if you do open GL and stuff like that, which I don't recommend most people doing. And I'll get to that in a little bit too. But Windows, so you'll need either 10 or 11 if you're looking at Windows. And I'll get to a little bit more to that 10 part here in just a minute. And basic processor, I would say 64-bit Intel or AMD, right? The faster the better. Basics on this, I'm gonna put 3.3 gigahertz at i5. And remember, that's basics, right? That's just to get you started. RAM, oh wait, no, not that RAM, sorry, that RAM. So we'll go with 16 gigs, right? I do recommend probably 32, got that in parentheses. 16 gigs is minimum. Hard drive space, recommended an SSD, right? Not so much the disk drives. We'll talk about that as well. Graphics card at bare minimum, Quadro A2000. And these are again bare minimum specs. And with that hard drive, 250 gigabytes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. And then antivirus and some special considerations with that. We'll get to that. Okay. Let me back up real quick on that. So the computer that I use every day for what I do has Windows, just to let you know what I'm using, not on this one, but on the one I use every day, is Windows 11 Pro, 13th Gen, i9. It's only 2.2 gigahertz. I got 32 gigs of RAM installed. I am running an RTX 3500 ADA generation and 64 bits on the system. Okay. So for your operating system, the biggest thing is to know, I would say, the end of life, right? And that kind of goes back to my last slide when I said Windows 10 or 11. I would probably go for 11 because end of life on 10, they're actually going to stop supporting it October 14th of 2025. So you can keep using it, but once you hit that end of life date, it will still work. However, Windows is not going to support it anymore. So any updates, any bugs, any of that stuff, you're kind of on your own there. So there's some other stuff with that, like the Windows Server 2019, SolidWorks will support on 2025 Service Pack 5. There's some other stuff with SQL stuff. I'm not going to go into all of them. But just know end of life stuff is out there, so keep that in mind. Another thing is, will Mac work? Can you use it on Mac? It's a trick question. I have students ask me this every time they come out of high school and like, ooh, I like my Apple, I like my Mac. And they're like, can I use my MacBook to run this class? And I'm like, well, you can, but it's not going to be fun and friendly, right? So you can look at some e-drawings. There's some stuff worth e-drawings 2025 and 2024 that'll work on some Mac OS stuff that has some end of life as well. But we run into the only way I've seen somebody run a Mac or run SolidWorks on Mac is to use what they call Boot Camp. Anybody familiar with that? And you're basically just opening a window with a virtual thing of Windows on it, right? So you're really not using it on a Mac anyway. And then it's not, again, super friendly with that computer and processing the information either. So now let's look at the processor. So with the processor, it is the most influential part of your system. Aside, there's some other stuff too that's influential, but this is probably the most influential.
Kareem chat. Apparently, I can't get him to mute because I'm not the host, and it's on. I guess we can mute all. There you go. Did he go?
Yeah, I'm muted. Should be good. Everything good? Let me know if you need anything else.
He's good. Apparently, he dropped off too.
Okay.
All right, go.
Okay, so generally speaking, the faster the processor, the faster your SolidWorks is going to work, right? And so there's some other options to be in consideration for. And I said, i5 may do okay for you. I'd be looking at, in at least the 5 gigahertz range, and then I'd also be looking at a minimum of an i7 processor. The newer the CPU may have. So let me go ahead and tab down and get the slides pulling up here. So similar CPUs, even if they're different years, they may not work exactly the same. So similar clock speeds don't equal the similar architectures, right? So you may have something that's an i9 from 2019 versus something that's an i9 from 2024, and the clock speeds may look the same, right? But the architecture in which it handles and routes the data is not going to be the same, right? And so you can find things that will actually process things better, or even have better core rates than say an older architecture. Another thing to know is that with SolidWorks, it doesn't really do a lot of multi-core stuff, right? So when you're looking at a lot of cores, it can help you in some cases, and in those cases, I would say FEA, yeah, so I was gonna get to FEA as well. Simulation is another one that will use multi-cores, but where I was going to be, before I get to that, is that if you're using SolidWorks up front, it's gonna use that single core, right? And then in the background, those other processes, those other programs you're using can then use some of the other cores, right? I'll talk a little bit more about having other programs open here in just a minute, but know that SolidWorks is primarily a single core user, right? And it's going to be very heavy on some of your RAM stuff and things going on there, and your graphics card as well. But just know that you want to look, especially in SolidWorks, you want to look for higher clock speeds. You want those clock speeds to be a little higher than the number of cores. Now, if you're doing simulation or FEA, maybe think about the other side of that, right? And then know that like those architectures, again, the 13th gen over even the 12th gen, they did a lot of major architecture improvements and core adaptations with that too. So like the 12th gen Intel CPU supports 16 cores comprising of 8 P cores and 8 E cores, right? And then that contrasts with the 13th gen, which has some advanced opportunities there with 24 cores splitting to 8 P cores and 16 E cores, offering some superior performance metrics compared to the previous generations.
Jeff Setzer said in the chat that SolidWorks is almost completely single thread.
Yeah. So just as it says in the chat, SolidWorks is almost completely single core driven, which is kind of what I was saying. It's basically single core processing. But those other programs that you have open, like Excel and all that other stuff in the background, they can run off those other cores, leaving the single core, one of the cores open just for SolidWorks. Now with that 13th gen to the 12th gen processor, you're looking at just an 11% improvement on a single core process performance, right? And then on multi-core, you're even getting 49% of an advantage. And that's just between the 12th and 13th gen. So I would definitely suggest people, and I know what was 2 years ago at World, we heard a lot about the 13th versus the 12th gen processors, and how everybody's just screaming out, go 13th. As soon as you're getting your new computers, bump to that 13th gen processors, where you're really going to see a lot of stuff. Now the P cores, that's going to talk about your delivering your peak performance stuff, as well. The E cores are going to be running stuff more efficiently on your regular use type tasks. So just give you a heads up on that. Now let's look at RAM. RAM being random access memory. What RAM's going to do is going to give you temporary high-speed storage access versus writing to your hard drive. It gives you some temporary access, which basically means it's just caching that information there for you, right? 16 gigs is kind of what I said a minute ago as the basics. I wouldn't run anything less than 32. That's probably the minimum I would be at. And the more you can go, the better. And I'll actually preference that, because maybe the more you go isn't always better either. So this also helps with the number and amount and size of programs you're running. I mentioned a minute ago. Yeah, you know, if you have more RAM and you have more cores, maybe you can run SolidWorks on the front end, run other stuff on the back end. But check out SolidWorks up here. It's running like 842 megs of my memory. Look how much Google's using. And I don't have that many tabs open. It's just showing that, but I've got a few things open in the background. I think there's some other stuff going on. Maybe YouTube is capturing a bunch of that, right? But it's got 2,800, it's got like 2 gigs, almost 3 gigs worth of memory that it's just trying to pull, right? And that's not even counting the other stuff that's down there, but it was highly processed. Now, Google is trying to do some things where it's hibernating tabs in the background and a lot of other funny stuff they're doing right now. And we're kind of looking into that as Altech because you can actually open so many and then it just dumps stuff for some reason. So keep that in mind that it does, RAM does help out with the size of the programs you're running as well as how many programs you're running. But keep in mind that if you're running something very intense on your computer, a large model, large assembly or something like that, you may want to just consider closing everything in the background, right? If you want to be more proficient at what you're doing with that model, just close everything down, just run SolidWorks.
How can I work with that YouTube plan?
I know, right? How can you work with that YouTube plan? I guess you're gonna have to use your phone. Oh, look, you done talk, Google got, thought you was talking to her. All right, and virtual memory. So if you go and you look and you look at your specs. So if you do a task manager, look at your task manager, you know, where you go in and end tasks on stuff. You can go a tab over and you can start looking at your processes and how things are running. If you see that you're pegging out on RAM and stuff, then maybe it is idea to upgrade and add some more RAM to your computer. It's just a little block typically that just slots in and plugs right into your board. Whether it's a tower, it, you know, plugs in a little different than say on a laptop, but they're pretty easy to get to. You probably want to get your IT guy to do it if you are the IT or the admin person. It's really not hard to add more RAM. Now, if you're seeing slowness and issues with SolidWorks and stuff you're doing and you're not maxing out your RAM, then you may be having some other issues, right? And it could lead to some of your virtual memory stuff, right? So virtual memory is almost like where it's running as much as it can on the RAM, and then it spins off and starts adding it to like a scratch writing process on your hard drive and leading over to hard drive. We'll actually talk about more of that here. Does anybody remember these guys? I'm hoping nobody's using these anymore. Disk drives. Yeah, they're, in my opinion, older. They get damaged easier. I know I had a computer one time back in the day, when it was running, you could hear it spin up. You could hear that disk drive just spin and sound like like the computer had another fan in it, right? And then if you bumped it at the wrong time when it was in the middle of writing data and spinning, you would actually cause the needle. So yeah, you actually caused the needle to bump the disk, and then your computer was gone. Your hard drive was gone. Trying to get your memory off of it wasn't any fun. So if we look at a hard drive, disk drive versus a solid state drive, right? You can see the differences. There's a lot more mechanical moving components with that hard disk drive than there is with a solid state drive, right? SSD. A lot more chips and stuff that are just kind of pulling through, whereas the hard drive, it's spinning. You got a platter spinning around, right? And you got this little arm with a head that's reading and writing that information, and pulling and pushing that data. So because there's more, I'm assuming, don't know this, don't take it 100%, but I'm assuming that because there's more mechanical parts in the process within the hard drive, that's why it probably takes more time to read and write from that versus a solid state drive. Also, if you've ever noticed, been around long enough to use hard drives versus solid state drives, that when you started a computer with a hard drive on it, how much slower it would start up and load versus a solid state drive. And even on updates and firmware updates and operating system updates, the difference there is pretty remarkable as well. But now, even when you get into the solid state drives, looking at like an NVMe or a PCI solid state drive over a SATA is going to get you better performance as well, right? They just have higher bandwidth and they're pushing and pulling that data a little faster. So you get better read and write speeds out of that. Now, when selecting that hard drive, you need to make sure you've got a big enough drive or solid state drive. You need to make sure it's big enough to capture all the data that you're going to put on it, right? And probably most people, if you're working for certain companies, you're probably pushing stuff to a server. You're not keeping a lot of it cached on your machine. You're pushing it out and then it's kind of syncing the files back, or if you're using a PDM, then that may be even helpful because then you're pushing it off to a server off your computer there too. But know that certain software like Windows operating system and all those things are going to take chunks out of your hard drive or out of your drive that you're using. And so know that once you put all that in there and you're not adding your own personal music library to it and everything else, and if you are, count that in it too. But make sure you have some disk space left over, right? I know we have an issue sometimes if just on admin side of stuff, when you're pushing out the new version of SolidWorks, right? And you're going from say 22 to 23, that if you don't have at least 50 gigs of space free on your computer, and that's just space free on your computer for the update, then we have issues, right? Got to go in and clean somebody's computer up and then install the new version of SolidWorks, right? And so I would say this number is probably low in my opinion, but I would say at least 10% of your drive needs to be free. At a minimum, 10% of your drive needs to be free at all times, right? And then add a little extra fluff there for updates and stuff like that as well.
Top of chat, but he just ran into that, upgrading to 2024, not having enough space on machines.
Yeah, so we have somebody on Zoom that said they just ran into that same problem. They went to try and update their machine and they didn't have enough space on the drive.
8 machines.
On 8 machines. So he really had fun kind of trying to clean up data. And I've noticed, and I don't know about you guys, maybe you don't download a bunch of stuff, but I noticed my files like to hoard space in my download files block, right, where I'm downloading the information back and forth. They'll just be there, and I just need to go clean that out every now and again. So that's big. Make sure you have at least 10%. I would opt at a minimum 250 gigs. I mentioned that at the beginning. I would probably go at least 500 gigs. I don't think at this day and age would go any less than 500. And of course, moving forward in time, I can envision drives needing to get bigger because it seems like files get bigger, but SolidWorks has done a great job over the last few years of reducing file sizes and doing file management stuff with them. And so the file sizes haven't been as big. So that's very helpful.
Cloud and PLM stuff.
Cloud and PLM and stuff like that. Yeah. And if you don't have that, reach out to your VAR. They can definitely help you try and offload some of that stuff too, and save you some disk space and manage some of that data for you, right?
Jeff Setzer said it's got to be in somebody's law that a user will fill up whatever storage space they're given.
Yeah, and that's probably my thing. I mean, you looked at all the stuff I've got open right now, but yeah, it's pretty funny. It's got to be in somebody's law to fill up all that space, right? You don't want an empty closet, like my wife says. There's always room for another pair of shoes, right? So. And that's a lot of stuff and there's the Windows-based storage. So I just kind of talked about that and didn't bring it up. That's okay. Let's look at the graphics card. So there's a few things here with the graphics card that you got to think of because this is going to help you with the actual visualization of what you're doing, right? And also, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, some of the VARs, but SolidWorks, even though it's single thread and even though it's using RAM, it's starting to pull, and a lot of other programs too, is starting to pull some of that cache from the graphics cards now, right? Yeah, because the graphics cards are becoming more efficient and able to handle that data too for cache. So it's going to help with screen rotates, zooms, pans, refreshes, stuff like that. It's going to allow you to rotate more smoothly. And see things in your graphics area. Graphics cards can also be enabled for visualization features to display images more realistically, which Brad just got done talking about, right? Now, we just had this debate just a minute ago. I told you it was coming up in the presentation. Is I suggest a workstation class graphics card, right? I put a caveat in my notes that will a gaming graphics card work? Yeah, very well could. If you're doing certain types of tasks, or maybe not everything you do is SolidWorks or design related. Maybe there is some photography editing and some stuff like that. Maybe some videography editing and stuff like that. Maybe you do need a little bit more of a gamer's graphics card to handle the data because they do handle data differently when you're looking at that stuff. And so I'm gonna say that. Yeah, you might could get away with it, but I'm not going to give you any promises that it's going to do what you want it to do, and neither is SolidWorks.
It looks like 2019 beta and 2020 is when the screen pan zoom rotate took over. The graphics card took over that.
When was it?
2019 2019.
2019, yeah, I think I actually have that in my notes right here. Additionally, SolidWorks in 2019, the newer leverages, sorry, that's something else. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, 2019 leverages the graphics card for spin and rotate. So when you're looking for the hardware that you need on your computer, let's say the graphics card, this QR code's a good place or resource to look for it at, right? And this will take you to SolidWorks. I'm gonna click on it real quick and let's go look at that for just a second.
Also, Jeff dropped the hardware, sort of the hardware recommendations PDF in the chat for people on.
Awesome,
on-
please,
on
yeah.
Zoom to look at.
And Jeff, if you don't mind going in and dropping this here from the QR code that I just put on there, this is SolidWorks's site for hardware certification. It's really easy to use in my opinion. You come in, you look for the version of SolidWorks that you're using. You look for the computer that you're using, the brand. Hopefully it's, I'm promoting HP this week, so hopefully it's HP. And then you come down and let's look for a ZBook maybe, ZBook Fury 11. Let's look for the graphics card. Let's go with a 3000. And right here, this tells me exactly what I need. Now, if you have a computer very similar to the one I work on as a daily driver, my company is a fanatic about updates and forcing updates. And guess what one of those updates happens to be? Seems like every time they push updates. My graphics card driver. Yeah, my graphics card driver, right? And so I'm trugging along and all of a sudden I have glitches in my graphics view, or my model's not doing something just right, or maybe I'm not seeing text in a certain place on my drawing. You know what the first thing I do is? They update my dang graphics card driver again. And most of the time I keep that graphics card driver because it doesn't change very often. You may want to go look at it every now and again, but I usually keep it in my downloads folder because I know I'm gonna have to go back and reinstall it probably every few months, right? But it's always good to come in here and check that. There's also a glitch with some of the NVIDIA graphics cards that we're discovering right now, where when you go to a drawing and you click into a notes field, the I bar, right, the cursor for your text is missing, right? And it's definitely something that's a known issue. I chased this rabbit down the hole really, really far and found out it is a known issue with NVIDIA, and SolidWorks themselves has put in a help desk to NVIDIA to try and fix it. And I think some of the stuff they have fixed it on. And we was able to actually even run OpenGL to verify that it was that card or that NVIDIA.
Yep, Jeff Sesser
Or
says
so.
that it's the blind cursor.
The blind cursor, and it drives me nuts. There's a couple of little workarounds on certain areas, but it just really, it's awful. It's like, why? I just want to see my cursor in my text box. That's all I ask for. It's nothing big. So there's some other stuff around there, but just make sure, I guess the point here is also just make sure you're using the right driver for the right card, the right computer and all that stuff. And SolidWorks is gonna support that. And they've tested these, they've vetted these to do that for you. OpenGL hardware acceleration. So in 2019, this is where I was getting ahead of myself a minute ago. In 2019, SolidWorks allowed for OpenGL hardware acceleration, and supporting that now. Sorry, they've done it before, but as of 2019, they started supporting OpenGL 4.5 to improve improved performance and enhanced graphics performance options enabling. And now what I recommend this for, and I've done this for guys on the shop because we have guys on the shop that run SolidWorks. We've got a lot of licenses and floating licenses. And so they'll open it up on the shop floor to be able to look at models and double check things. And they're getting better computers now, but they were using these little bitty book computers, right? And they would have graphics card issues and it wouldn't want to open. And so if you went and did OpenGL, it would actually allow it to open and bypass the graphics card. That's kind of what it's doing. It's bypassing the graphics card. It's good. I don't say use it, right? Especially if you're in the engineering and designing field, you should have a computer with a graphics card that's going to run it to where you don't need to use OpenGL. But where OpenGL will benefit you is if you see something funky going on in your process or on your model or on your drawing, like that I bar thing I was just telling you about. the I-beam or the cursor. If you see something like that going on, run OpenGL. If you run it and you see things are working fine and using the computer's native graphics card or whatever the one that they have already in there, then it's you're gonna notice it may be the graphics card itself, or at least the driver maybe even. And that's kind of how we fine tune and found out a little bit more about that as well.
Apparently this new graphics setup for 2019 and up works with the old Quadro M's
Okay.
cards too.
Now, when we look at some different stuff, there's some hybrid modes and GPU modes, and you guys was just discussing that back there a little bit when we was talking about Visualize. So I'm kind of glad this kind of pans and holds hands with that previous presentation a little bit because Visualize is going to do things different with the GPU architecture and render things in kind of a hybrid and in GPU modes. So keep that in mind. There is some stuff on the SolidWorks help files that'll kind of coach you and walk you through that that you can look up and see within SolidWorks. And of course, if you got a good VAR, reach out to them. They'll coach you and help you as much too. Another thing I want to talk about is this is something I learned. I'm gonna give this shout out to Aline Vergatu. I learned this from him in one of his presentations. So everybody talks about the 3D mouse, the 3D connection, how great it is for the graphics card stuff, because when you use a 3D mouse, and it still holds true even with this, right? When you use a 3D mouse and your model goes to rotate, let me back up. When you use a regular mouse and you rotate that model with a regular mouse, every time it moves and it's kind of basically twitching in air, right, in your model, it's having to rebuild that view with every step, right? So as you move it, it's constantly rebuilding and visualizing that for you with your mouse move. Now, contrary to that, with the 3D mouse, when you use it, it doesn't rebuild and kick in that graphics card until you stop moving. As where your mouse is going to do it continuously while you're moving, the 3D mouse is going to say, okay, I'm moving, I'm stopped, now I'm rebuilding, and it's going to save you. So you'll see a huge difference with rotating big, large assemblies between those two things. Now, here's another trick, and this is the one that I learned from Aline, is that if you go into your system options and go to performance, make sure your curvature geometry is on only on demand. Now, we keep ours all the way to the right with us. Right, all the way right, which is basically doing a little bit, but not everything, and it's going to be less and a lot faster. But you see this little mark right here that says off? If you just go kick it all the way over to off, which is weird, you'd think off would be on the faster side, but it's not, it's on the slower side. You kick it to off, it's completely off, and it'll rotate just about as quick as it would with the 3D mouse. All right. So now let's look at antiviruses. So this is another thing that can wreak havoc on your system. The first thing I'll say is when you use an antivirus piece of software, because I guarantee you every company is doing it. I'm sure you guys have them, right? You have some kind of antivirus software on your computer, right? Use one that's a trusted product, one that's got some reputation to it and is reliable, and you know is gonna mute.
Yep.
Make sure it's the right mic too. Come back to my toolbar. Okay. So yeah, use something that's trusted, use something reputable, know that it's going to save you. You got a lot of stuff out there and phishing emails. I'm sure you guys are getting a lot of that training too, like most companies are. But it doesn't help to have antivirus software if it's not up to date to the latest version. A little different than most programs because as you know, as we think of a regular virus, right, it mutates, it forms, just like the yearly flu shot. They kind of try and keep that up to date with what the flu strains going around at the time. No different than your antivirus software, right? The viruses that people use not only morph and mutate based on them, but they can change completely because maybe some hacker has found some new way of exploiting your data, right? And so in order to do that, these antivirus companies have to go in and be on top of their game. That's why it helps to have a reputable antivirus software, but it helps them because they need to be on top of their game to combat whatever those new viruses and hacks are out there, right? And so unless you update to the latest version, you're not receiving the latest protection against those hacks. So it's very important to keep your software and stuff up to date. Now, antivirus has different signatures and stuff that it can look for, different folders that it could be checking. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to look at here in a minute that's we're gonna maybe say make some exemptions and some exemptions for, so that way you don't run into laggy issues opening, closing, saving certain models, and even with PDM vaults and stuff too. All right, so this up here is a list, and there's more of them there, and you can look at SolidWorks help files to find some of this stuff too. But knowing that you need to make exemptions for SolidWorks files, maybe some shell files, some templates, file locations. I know there for a while we had a run-in with our IT department where they wanted to run a virus check on everything because we was pushing and pulling data through the server, right? And caching things locally at a local server. And as we was pushing and pulling things, they wanted the antivirus software to check everything coming and going within SolidWorks files. And you talk about data time. I mean, it was really just waiting and sitting there waiting for files to download or open because they was verifying they were clean, right? And so make exemptions for locations and those files. And here's a few of them here that you can look at. And PDM exclusions as well. The main SolidWorks PDM service and processes on the server side, and just some other stuff there for admins too. I won't bore you with too much with that stuff.
Assessor says this is all, like this, yes, exclamation point.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you don't, you're gonna be sitting there wondering why your model's not open. You're gonna blame it on SolidWorks, or you're gonna blame it on your computer, and really it's neither. It's the virus software you're running because you don't have exemptions.
Don't let the curse be worse than the disease.
Yeah, exactly. Did they say that in there?
Yes.
That's a perfect analogy. Don't let the
cure be worse.
Don't let the cure be worse than the disease. All right, that's perfect. I really like that. So here's some tips and tricks to run a little bit smoother, right? We talked about RAM, right? And how that RAM is stored, and it deletes itself after one of the only ways it'll delete itself is after a restart. SolidWorks is notorious for caching data, and it's sitting there. And sometimes it'll delete itself after a SolidWorks restart. Just restarting SolidWorks sometimes will help. But it's better if you just hit the reset button like we used to have to do a lot on our old Nintendos to get the game to work. Just restart your computer daily. I know I'm not practicing exactly what I preach because I probably go weekly sometimes, but daily. If you want the best use out of your computer, restart your computer daily. Lightweight or auto. So talked a little bit about this before. It's raining again, ain't it? Boy, is my gear dry back there yet? So lightweight or auto. So there's some different tools within SolidWorks in the system options when you look at large assemblies that you can go in and tell it, okay, after so many parts or sub-assemblies or whatever, go ahead and turn on lightweight mode or LDR mode or different things like that. And you can set that number to whatever you want, whatever you think that preference should be. Sometimes I feel like anywhere from 2 to 500 is a good number to load lightweight. Now in 2023, they just rolled out this new version called Auto, right? I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of it just yet. What it does, so when you go to open a file, you can actually open a file based off, you click on the file name, whatever it is, and then right down below before you actually hit open, where the field is for the name, you'll have an option for resolved, lightweight, or LDR, right? And then it's a little different for drawings. You got different terminology there, but you can click on any of those. Now, if you set it to auto in your system options, it doesn't give you all those. It basically gives you resolved or LDR, large design review. Because once you set it to auto, you just set it and you forget it and you go, and it pretty much looks at your model and says, okay, I think we probably need, this is a large model, we probably just need to go load everything lightweight. All right. I haven't looked at it without our PLM system yet, but based on what I've seen with our stuff, because we run a PLM system out that's not SolidWorks related, it's Team Center. And best of what I can tell is when you run lightweight itself, you can come over in your feature tree and your design tree, and you can see little feathers like this up there next to your parts. That indicates it's in lightweight mode, right? And usually if you need to resolve it, you can right click, click resolve, or you can expand it and it'll resolve. Because there's certain times when you want to do some measurements or something, you want to click a midpoint or something, because it's not fully resolved, you can't select those midpoints and stuff. They're just not available for you. So you have to resolve them. And that's great for lightweight, but when they went to auto, because it's trying to do it mysteriously in the background, I feel like those feathers aren't there anymore to indicate they're lightweight. The only way I'm able to see them with what we're doing is by looking in the PLM dash and seeing it there. And the next little stab to it is when you try and do that select midpoint, it won't let you. And the only thing you think of is lightweight, but you look and it's not lightweight there. And if you don't have PLM to know it's lightweight, then you don't have a way to right click and resolve either. That's gone. You can't expand it to resolve it like you normally could. So you actually have to go in and open that part or that file and then come back, and then it's resolved. So I preference be careful with auto. If you don't have to use it, probably don't use it, and be a little bit more mindful on when you use lightweight, or just go in and set those file limits for when it's going to open. Keep account on the number of mates you're using, right? I definitely wouldn't put over 300 mates in a model. I think once you start getting up that high, SolidWorks starts really churning, trying to calculate all that and put it all together in front of you. And I would say it's probably even better to keep it under 200. I'd say under 200. Graphics triangles, right? This is huge. If you're working with scan data, you probably see this even more, because graphics triangles on scan data can be really high, especially if you're looking at how much micros it's looking at, and how fine a detail it's trying to get for you, how much microns it's getting. But know that if you go and you download a bolt from McMaster-Carr and you pull it in, make sure you don't use one with threads. Use one that maybe emulates threads in some way, but that it doesn't have threads, because you're going to increase those graphics triangles. And something as small as a bolt with those threads on it can really drive up the graphics triangles in your model so much that it could take an extra couple minutes per bolt to open up your model, right? So be mindful of that. Go into different models that may have more graphics triangles, and when you don't see them, I know Brad made a good point in the presentation this week. You know, this thing's a pretty bottle and it's got all this little detail in it. It's got this cap in it. But if it's just sitting in a place in your model and you don't need to see that detail, it's just a placeholder, just put a cylinder in there, right? Do another configuration of that and just make it a cylinder, and you'll really reduce those graphics triangles by doing that. Circular references, right? This is big, especially when people are new and they don't understand how mating works and how SolidWorks is trying to calculate and resolve that model for it to open. But don't make one thing to something and then go around and mate it back to itself again, right? The biggest place I see this in is probably with patterns. Don't mate things to patterns. That's a big no-no. If you can use core planes and origins and stuff that are core to the model or the part itself, that's probably your best win, because if anything changes, you don't have to worry about mates blowing up. So whenever possible, mate all your components to one or two things that are there, that has your reference planes and stuff. Long chains of components take longer to solve and are more prone to mate errors. Avoid redundant mates. Ketchup and mustard. Anybody see this? Have this happen to them? Probably. Doritos and meatballs. Yeah. Don't leave your models like this. It may be one of those days where it's the end of Friday and you're like, man, I don't want to deal with this. And you just put it down, and then you go home and you don't remember to fix it the next time. And then Betty gets a hold of it and she opens it and she's like, man, what are these guys doing? They're killing me. I can't open this model. It's taking 10 minutes. And that's because SolidWorks is churning, trying to figure out, trying to calculate all that stuff that's maybe underdefined or overdefined. And it keeps churning, pecking for the answers that aren't there. Right? Performance evaluation. I was going to pull this stuff up, but we're cooking on time. We're coming on time. So I'm just going to illustrate and talk about it here real quick. There's performance evaluation and assembly evaluation. This is just some high level viewing stuff that you can go into the evaluation tab, look at a model, and see where your heavy hitters are, right? So performance evaluation is going to kind of give you a breakdown of stuff of maybe here's your graphics triangles, here's your document open file times, details and stuff like that. And then you can even print that out and have it as a resource if you need it for later. But it kind of gives you a hierarchy level of detail for what's happening in your model. And it's a great place to troubleshoot something if you're having issues and hard times opening it, right? Now, I know we all like to have a model that opens a little slower so we can go grab a cup of coffee and take a whiz, right? But it's not every time. So take a look at it and see what it's doing. And then even furthermore, when you go into assembly visualization, I really like that because it gives you color-coded graphics of where your heavy hitters are. So you can look at it and say, oh, that blue stuff's not so bad, but man, that red stuff's really bad. And you can go in and find out, does it have, a million graphics triangles? Is it really slowing my model down that much? Purge. Purge or be purged. I don't know if anybody's watched that movie, but that's where that came from. Purge or be purged, right? So I see people doing this all the time within our company, and they do it out of good reasons, right? I guess I've heard that no roads to hell were paved with good intentions, but they leave the stuff in their model because they think they're going to come back and need it later on. They'll suppress sketches, they'll suppress features, they'll suppress sub-assemblies and other parts that are in bigger assemblies because they think, oh, maybe they're going to change their mind and I need to come back and put it back in, and that may be fine. Maybe for temporary purposes it's okay, but don't leave them. Don't leave them in there, because then the next time you come back a year later to maybe revise it and do another job, or somebody else grabs a hold of it because maybe they're taking over something and doing something different with it, they're left with all that extra baggage that you've left in your model. And it's just as easy to go in and right click on it and purge it. Purge all that data. If you don't need it, purge it. Anything that's suppressed or not used, get rid of it, right? Suspend automatic rebuilds. Now, some of this stuff, I mean, depending on how complex your stuff is, maybe you want automatic rebuilds. Maybe it's going to be advantageous for you to go in and change a part, come right back in. If it's a big modification, you definitely want to see that change happen, right? But you can go into tools options or go into your system options in general, go to assemblies, large assemblies, and suspend automatic rebuilds, right? And so just go into system options. There's a search function at the top. Type in automatic rebuilds and suspend that. And what that's going to do is anytime you go make minor tweaks and stuff to things and you come back, you're not constantly rebuilding your model. This is this is better and bigger if on the efficiency side for large assemblies than it is for smaller stuff. Right power or power supply cord for what you're using. For towers and stuff, I don't know that it's gonna be a huge deal, because most of that, wattage and stuff is handled internal to the tower. You're basically just plugging a cord from the wall to your tower. But for laptops, if you're running laptops, make sure you have the power cord that came with your laptop. If your laptop says it's 250 watts on the power and you're trying to run SolidWorks with a 60-watt USB-C cord, guess what's gonna happen to SolidWorks? It's gonna nerf its performance, right? It's not gonna get all the power that it needs and required to run and spin up everything on the hard drive or hardware side of your computer. It'll run, but I mean, you can go so low in wattage and power that it'll actually drain the power while you're using it versus actually keeping your laptop charged and running. So make sure you're using the right power cord for the job, and you'll get better optimal performance for that. I always like to end with a couple of slides, kind of similar to what Brad does. This one right here, I like to say, if I was you, you was me, what would I have wrote down from my notes? I would say definitely watch the end of life for your software. Know when that's happening, know when your support ends. Clock speeds matter for SolidWorks. Now, if you're doing some other stuff, maybe you're looking for cores, right? So consider that. SSDs are faster, especially when you don't use the SATA ones, you use the newer versions, you get better read and write speeds. Use a certified SolidWorks graphics card and driver. And set exemptions for antivirus software. Now, like Brad, I like to call people to action with this. And I'd like to say, be mindful of your design. Wait, this didn't update. That did, but those didn't. I'm gonna read these because those didn't update. Yeah, so I'm gonna give you some new call to actions. Check your PC specs. Make sure they're somewhat comparable to what I mentioned here today. If they're not, look at ways of getting them better or getting a better PC. Know that even computers and hardware themselves have an end of life cycle in a way too, because as things roll out, especially with the architecture on the graphics card, be checking that. So one quote I have here is, give ordinary people the right tools and they will design and build the most extraordinary things. And then, of course, Adam Savage said, I like to work fast. I despise not having the right tool, or worse, knowing I have it, but not being able to find it. So get the right tool and use the right tool for the job. And I'll end that with some questions.